Hello, Markus.
Hello.
Very nice to have you with us in this interview for the video documentary for Stafford Centenary. It's a big honor and a big pleasure to have you with us in this project, Markus. Thank you very much. The first question we want to ask you is, tell us, how did you find out first about the Stafford and his ideas?
Well, I think this goes back very long. And over all these years, Stafford is a fabulous mentor and a wonderful friend. And so my exposure to his work goes back to 1974, when I studied at the University of St. Gallen, Switzerland. There, the systems approach was a very important factor of the education and research program. The concept of systems-oriented management, which goes back to my teachers, Hans Ulrich, founder of our institute, and Walter Krieg, this was cast into the so-called St. Gallen management model. It came out in 1972 at the Institute of Management at our university. This St. Gallen management model became very influential, not only inside at our university, but also in the corporate landscape as a framework, which was very much used and still is. Now, these developments fascinated me. When I had my first part-time assignment to lecture at the university, this started in 1980. I taught systems concepts and models. In parallel, I realized consulting projects where the viable system model by Stafford had a crucial part. All of these activities naturally raised questions. The more you know, the more questions open up, And so I wrote a letter to Stafford asking him for a meeting. We met in 1987 in London at the 7th Triennial Conference of WOSC, the World Organization of Science, of Systems and Cybernetics, of which Stafford at the time was president. So the discussion with him, it was very stimulating, And so he gave the presidential address, which had the interesting title, Holism and the Frou-Frou Slander. One quote, which I have remembers from, it was actually quite a deep title,
Yeah.
And because a lot of people formulate this slander, they say this is frou-frou and this is not exact and all that, I remember a quote from that talk, and he said, reductionism is the rock on which Western science was founded, and it's the self-same rock on which society has foundered. And well, that was both reassuring and stimulating for my commitment to systemic approaches. And well, actually, the talk was fantastic, and I would have several other quotations, which I recall from their Smuts and McCulloch.
Yeah.
So let's keep it with that for the moment.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Markus. And how would his ideas influence your work or your life?
Well, when I went to study at the University of St. Gallen, I already had several years of practical experience. Also some studies at other universities, but not complete, except one professional college where I finished. And my perception was that the current concepts in the textbooks were insufficient and managerial practices were in need of improvement. So I was hungry for a theory and practice of higher value. The dialogue with Stafford convinced me that such approaches existed. This was very good for a young man, who had his doubts and so on. It was very giving me a lot of positive outlook. Later, I met other protagonists of the systems approach, Anatol Rapoport, Jay Forrester, Heinz von Förster, Russell Akoff, and also from the next generation, Raúl Espejo, Mike Jackson, and Stuart Ampleby, etc. All of these encounters were encouraging. Now, if I come back to Stafford, he conveyed a thinking that was unorthodox and holistic. His concepts were clear, provocative, and convincing. And so was his personality altogether. I was so grateful that a deeply rooted and powerful theory existed that superseded the conventional. The concept of viability was of a new kind.
Thank you, Markus. Very, very exciting to listen to you. And what do you think were Stafford's most important contributions to science?
Well, the viable system model is Stafford's pivotal and focal contribution, and it's the most read, the most discussed, and the most applied. And well, you are one of the protagonists of the VSM, and even wrote books about it. Mm-hmm. Now, the VSM, many people don't really know that, so I have to say it very explicitly. The VSM is the strongest organization theory we have at this point. And a study of mine with Christine Schäf corroborates this. It is called A Test of the Viable System, Theoretical Claim versus Empirical Evidence. So that's a contribution to corroborating what I'm saying.
Yeah, that was a brilliant contribution. I think that more people should know about it, because many people still doubt about the validity, the scientific validity, yes. And you have done a really interesting demonstration of it. Really, really nice.
Well, your comment is encouraging. Thank you, Angela.
Okay, thank you. And coming back to how useful is it? Do you think that the VSM works in practice? Can you give us an example of an application that you have done that demonstrate the power of the VSM in practical terms?
Well, I have several or even many examples, but I'll choose one which is quite old. This goes back to the 80s. Mm-hmm. I would say very new ones too, but I think this was always a fascinating case, because I also accompanied what's going on with the company over 20 years and more. That was an insurance company, and it was with another one. There were two, and that I can say the name Zurich. And so Zurich, Switzerland gave us the mandate to reformulate with them, to help them design the strategy and the organization for the company. And we did it for the Swiss company of a larger concern. They were active worldwide. We did it for those about 3,000 to 4,000 employees. And actually, the internal correspondent I had was a man who really knew cybernetics very well. And so we designed that project, and we ran it. And it was very good for the company. I know it because I had interviews later on for later years. Now, 20 years after that, I met the CEO of the company, and I said, "So how is that? Do you remember our project?" And we had 17 people in the project from all departments, from technique, I don't know, underwriting, marketing, and so on, and even administrators, finance people, and all that. Now, this CEO, he said, "Well, yes, that was our initial work, and we built the whole work on that." So this was a very positive comment. It was not very It was not numerical or something. But the interesting thing is that the man inside the company, he then moved up to the concern level in the same function. It was a place called, it was something like organization development, or we call it Betriebswirtschaft. So he accompanies the development, the strategy, the organization, and all that. And so he moved up to the concern level, and they had another boss, and other circumstances. But he said, well, my idea was to apply this to the whole of the concern. That is to other companies and so on. And I have seen these drawings of these diagrams and all that. And well, I mean, it was very successful.
Wonderful. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Thank you for sharing that. How can you summarize the work that you have done to further develop or implement Stafford's ideas?
Yes. What I did. So there would be a lot to say about Stafford and all that. Now, I have been applying and further developing Stafford's ideas and concepts since 1980 in consulting, teaching, and research. Now, for example, in consulting, many projects together with Fredmund Malik. I worked for him in his consulting firm, institute, and Walter Krieg, who was the co-author of the St. Gallen management model.
Yeah.
And actually, he was the internal man at Zurich. And we did it in Switzerland and other countries, many countries. I used Stafford's model in many courses also and in seminars internationally, but two stand out. And the first case, this was one of the first two integrations worldwide ever held. The other one was in Manchester, but this one was in St. Gallen, with master students at the University of St. Gallen. I had the privilege of co-teaching this seminar with Stafford, who joined in as a visiting professor. The opening question of our integration was, how should management education be conceived for the future? Now, during that tenure Stafford had there, he gave a lot of talks at all levels. He was very industrious, He did. I think he worked more than the other guest professors did, and he gave these talks from bachelor to faculty seminar, incorporating people from all departments of the university. Not only the management people went there, everybody, not so many, but it was not a question of numbers, but we had a few from every department. So that impressed me. And we also, during that stay, Stafford and I worked on the methodology. We applied Teams Integrity, but we still had to work on the methodology, which was not fully settled yet.
Wow.
So that's one example. I have another example, the second case. There is a Dr. Johann Glocker, a highly decorated oncologist from Austria. And together with him, we created a master level seminar.
Wow.
And in a 3-day event, design and implementation of a statewide oncological care system for Carinthia, which is a state of Austria, was simulated. And well, this was in parallel. There was always the practice of him, and also I was like a consultant, interlocutor for him, like a coach for him over 30 years. And the seminar we gave, that started a little later, but we ran the seminar for more than 20 years.
Yeah.
Each year, and it was a huge success.
Yes.
Well, we used the new concept, a model, cybernetics, Stafford, but we also used new modes of teaching, new didactical concepts. Okay. So huge success.
Yeah. But you have also published a lot about the Stafford and the VSM. Tell us a little bit about your publications and the way that you have continued developing ideas, because your work is very unique I think,
Oh,
in terms of incorporating Stafford's ideas with the other ideas of management. Tell us a little bit more about your ideas on systemic management and the way that you have also contributed to clarify and progress the VSM.
yes. Well, you say that I combine things. That's very true. Well, I don't believe very much in theorizing. I believe in theorizing, but not theorizing all the time and only. So it's very interesting. Just we are people who are in the applied sciences, first of all, applied sciences. And so the cases I give, they are embedded in some reflection and some theoretical concepts and all that.
Yeah.
And now we have a difficult situation to work scientifically. How do we corroborate our claims? Through empirical evidence. And well, I can object, I can say, well, each case is an empirical situation. And if you work properly on it, it can be of great scientific value. And so I think I have done this work always in this mentality. And the study I cited, I said, well, I was so longing for empirical evidence on the basis of a larger sample, And that's why I did this study with Christine Schäf, and we found a sample. We found a good sample, and we checked with a survey if Stafford's theory holds. And we found out that it does. On the basis of empirical. So that's really the theoretical study we did. The cases are many. Perhaps one thing you will be interested in. I am a member of the cybernetics community and especially dedicated to continuing the work of Stafford Beer, but I'm also in the community of system dynamics. That's a very strong community in the system sciences. So I learned system dynamics with Jay Forrester 40 years ago, So, but there was one thing, I was convinced that you cannot solve, that you can only solve or deal with so-and-so limited project or objects with only one of the methodologies. And so I pleaded early on for combining VSM with other methodologies. I didn't say, and all I could give was to show how you combine VSM or cybernetics in general. I mean, if you talk about VSM, you always will talk about McCulloch and about Ashby, variety law and all that. So how you combine these things with the Jay Forrester's system dynamics. And I found a colleague who wrote an article with me in the System Dynamics Review. Yes. That was Jose Perez Rios.
Yes. Yeah, I think that it was very, very nice. This inspiration you have provided about how to combine VSM with systems dynamics. So that's very important.
Because there's one thing very important: if you combine something, it has to be done on rigorous grounds.
Yes.
I don't say rigor, I say rigorous. Mm-hmm. Or excuse me, I don't say rigid, I say rigor.
Yeah. Thank you, Markus. Okay, and the last question. If Stafford was lived today, what do you imagine that he will suggest we can do to address today's world and its challenges?
Well, I think about two aspects. I think, first of all, I think Stafford would advocate for Teams integrity to be used everywhere to deal with the problems facing the world. And naturally, not only Teams integrity deals with one special aspect of the BSM, the 3-4 system.
Understood.
So I know that he would say that because he made statements in that direction. And he also invited me at the time to direct this integration in New Zealand of the World Citizens Movement headed by Gary Davis. Unfortunately, I couldn't go. But so out of this context, I think Stafford would make a strong case of using Teams integrity and Teams integrity in combination with VSM. And the second thing is Stafford would encourage his students to use and advance his ideas. For example, I am such a student. I'm still active and I use these ideas permanently for all kinds of scientific projects. The latest one being ecological, social, and the last one is a peace project.
Wonderful. Yes.
Before that, I did a lot of work in healthcare and other industries. So I remain committed to continuing Stafford's work. I'm also trying to promote the use of VSM and Teams integrity as tools for addressing humanity's problems. These problems and challenges arise at all levels. You need to go to the globe level. You can look at any level from individual, family, organization, network, country, or the entire world. And well, not all messages of Stafford came out so explicitly.
Yeah.
And I give you one at the end, because there would be many stories, but just let me give you this small one. Stafford and I shared a social and ecological concern. And Stafford did not only advocate sustainability, but he also practiced sustainable ways of living each day. So at one point we walked in the wood and I picked up some of the waste that was lying there, a plastic bottle and a piece of glass. Stafford was very pleased and he said, I do the same thing. That was no surprise to me because it was clear we are brothers.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Markus. Well, thank you very much. It's been a really, really nice interview. Thank you very much.
Well, the pleasure was mine. Thank you, Angela.